everyone, and welcome back to Learning Kitchen Live. My name is Valerie. I'm the manager of nutrition services here at Community Servings, and I am so excited to be back today. I am going to make a delicious vegetable hash using some unique vegetables with fried eggs. It's a great staple meal for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Boston Scientific for sponsoring Learning Kitchen Live, and also remind everyone that we will post links to a survey in the comments section after today's show. We would love it if you haven't done so already to take a few minutes to fill that out. It really helps us out to make sure that we know that we're providing you with the information you want. There are two surveys, one in English and one in Spanish. And you will also find today's recipe and a little nutrition education fact sheet about radishes there as well. So I hope you enjoy today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. As I might have just given away, I'm going to make a vegetable hash with radishes and turnips. And before you kind of like wrinkle your nose at that, it's going to be delicious, I promise you, because these are two vegetables that are totally not given the credit that they deserve in the kitchen. There's a few others too that I'll mention while I'm talking, but this recipe is really interesting because it's a super healthy version of a potato hash with fried eggs, and that's like a great breakfast. Like I said, I'd eat this for lunch. It's a great dinner. Something also worth noting is that all of the ingredients for this, and it's enough to feed probably 3 to 4 people, depending on how hungry you are. All of the ingredients for this cost about $8. So it's a super affordable way to prepare a healthy, hearty, and filling meal. So with that, we're going to get started. As the name implies, hash with radish and turnips. So if you've never cooked with radishes before, you're totally missing out. I always used to think of them as a thing you put in salads. You slice them up and you put them in salads, and that was it. But my eyes were open to radishes when someone told me about roasting them last year, and I have never gone back. They're so delicious. I'm assuming most people watching have seen radishes, but these are trimmed radishes. I trimmed them and took the radish tops, the leaves off, and trimmed the roots on the bottom and washed them. But they come in all different sizes and colors. These are your kind of standard red radishes that you find in most stores. They also come in pink, white. There's a watermelon radish, which is super beautiful. If you slice into it, it actually looks like a watermelon. They're hard to find, but they are in season right now. Radishes are in season between like April and July, so they're really affordable. I got 2 bunches of radishes for about $1. This was at like a farm stand, so it might be a little differently priced in the grocery store, but they're really affordable, and they keep for a long time. If you trim them and wash them and keep them in either a plastic bag or like a container in your fridge, they'll last for a couple of weeks, so they will keep fresh and you can just keep using them. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to take turnip and radishes. We're going to boil them for a few minutes just to soften them up because they're super crunchy vegetables. And then we're going to saute them, and that's where the magic is going to happen with these. They're going to get like caramelized and almost a sweet flavor. Radishes and turnips can both be almost like spicy. They're crisp and have like a little bite to them. But once you boil them and saute them, they become like soft and sweet. So what I have here is probably about a bunch of radishes that I have diced or quartered depending on how big they were. And I have 1 turnip that I diced. I'm going to do the other one. And that's going to be the base of our hash. For those of you who are not familiar with the turnip, this is a purple top turnip. It's kind of your most common variety that you'll find in the store. The ones I bought didn't have the greens attached, but turnip greens are totally edible. So are radish greens. They're a great way if you listen to us do Learning Kitchen Live, you know we're very into the idea of not wasting food. So I actually saved the radish greens. I have them at home, and I'll probably saute them. You can treat them like you would treat any like hearty leafy green. The one thing to note is turnip greens and radish greens can be like, they're a little coarse. They're not great raw. I prefer them sauteed. So with that, I am going to dice the rest of the turnip. All I did was I just used a vegetable peeler and peeled it, and I trimmed the top and the bottom off. You want to make sure you have a good flat surface to put the vegetable on, or create a flat surface so it doesn't roll all over the place. So it's a little safer. So I'm going to just cut this into a dice. So one of the things that I like about turnips and radishes is that they're kind of like starchy vegetables, but they have far fewer carbohydrates in them than your run-of-the-mill starchy vegetables. So a potato that's like comparable in size to this would have probably about 35 grams of carbohydrates. This turnip has about 8. So for people who are watching their blood sugar in particular, so people with diabetes, a turnip is like a great alternative to like a potato hash, for example. Just far less carbohydrates in it. And you know, radishes, again, like they're this super versatile vegetable that most people like me, to be honest, I never even really thought of using them beyond a salad, but they become so delicious when you cook them. Another really great way to use radishes is to pickle them. So if you just boil some vinegar, salt, and sugar, and then toss your radishes in and let them sit for like an hour, you'll have pickled radishes, and they're actually really delicious. They're like a great topper for tacos or quesadillas or anything like that. So I'm going to move over here. What I have going on here is a pot of almost boiling water. It's just about boiling, and I am going to carefully put the radishes and the turnips in here. And I'm just going to let them cook for like 3 to 5 minutes. Not a ton, because we are still going to saute them. But like I said, I want them to get a little bit soft, and just a little bit soft, and take some of the bite out of them. And while those cook, we're going to prepare the rest of the ingredients that we need. I'm going to saute an onion. So I just have a yellow onion that's been diced. I'm going to turn my, turn my frying pan on like medium heat and add about a tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm going to use an onion and some scallions, or green onions. These are also pretty inexpensive right now. I got a big bunch for about 50 cents. So I'm going to use those, but you can totally omit them if they're not accessible to you, or you don't have any on hand. This is one of those great recipes, they're rolling away, that you can use so many different things for, and it's infinitely versatile. So like I said, if you didn't have green onions, just leave them out. If you don't have turnips, don't like turnips, they do have a very distinct flavor. Leave them out and use something else. You know, you could certainly use potato. Another vegetable that I personally think would be great in this, and that is this like unsung kitchen hero, is kohlrabi. It comes into season in the summer, and it looks a little bit like an alien. It's like, it kind of looks like this, but has like shoots sticking out from all over it. But it's really delicious. It has almost a flavor of like, it has like a broccoli stalk-ish flavor, but it has the same texture as a turnip almost, and it would be great in a dish like this. You can also make kohlrabi fries, which are delicious, just like baked oven fries with kohlrabi. Again, much lower in carbohydrates. Another vegetable I would love to use in this would be celery root, another thing that's like that people don't often think of using, but a much lower carbohydrate, starchy type vegetable. We actually make a really delicious, here at Community Servings, a really delicious celery root puree that goes out as a side dish for many of our clients. It's just a really nice way of making a hearty side dish that is controlled in carbohydrates, and it's so flavorful you don't need to add a lot of salt or anything else to it to make it taste really good. So my oil's heated up. I'm going to add my onion to this, and I want to cook this down a little bit while my turnip and radishes cook for another minute or so. I always thought of turnips, like my association with them is Thanksgiving for some reason. I feel like every Thanksgiving my entire life there's been like a pureed turnip souffle on the table, which is delicious, but I never really gave much thought to other ways to use it. So I do things like cook it and make a hash out of it, or use it as a side dish, puree it. It's really delicious. So just a way to think about this root vegetable in a different way, and it's super affordable too, and they keep forever. Similar to potatoes, if you keep this in a cool, dry spot, it'll keep for probably a few months. Another bonus of using something like a turnip or celery root or something in place of potatoes is that it provides you with some different nutrients. I know a lot of people love potatoes and eat them regularly. I know my family does. I feel like I make oven fries with potatoes almost every week for some side dish. But they're also, things like this are really great for people who are watching their potassium intake. So sometimes individuals with different stages of kidney disease have to really watch their intake of certain nutrients. And this is a great way to control for things like potassium and still get the deliciousness of a hash, but it's friendly for people with other diseases, so diabetes, kidney disease, things like that. And it's so super flavorful. Like I said, you're not even going to need a lot of salt to make this taste really good. All right, I am going to add my green onions to this. Just to let those get softened up a little bit. So some other things that you can do with radishes is very simply clean them, have them if they're too big or if they're really big, toss them with some olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, or really any seasoning you like, and roast them in an oven, probably like a 400-degree oven for about 20-ish minutes or until they're soft and getting brown. Again, super delicious and easy side dish. All right, I think I'm gonna give these like one more minute. I just want them like fork tender, so just another minute and they should be good. And then they will be ready to drain and add to this. If you wanted to make this a little more of like a true hash or like a hash brown potato, you could absolutely take these vegetables and put them through the grating attachment of a food processor. I'm not sure I'd be excited about grating a lot of radishes on a box grater. I feel like I'd end up like getting my knuckles too much. But if you threw them in a food processor and grated them, this would cook a little faster. I would still cook them to make sure they got a little soft, and it would be more, it would be like a finer texture, but I like the diced vegetables too. All right, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna turn up my heat here a little bit. And all I'm gonna do is carefully take these out of the boiling water. You could use a slotted spoon. I'm just using a strainer. If you have a spider, which is like a strainer with a longer handle, that would be a great way to use this. I'm gonna get the last few radishes stuck in the bottom here. And even if you don't care for sauteed greens, like I was talking about the radish tops and the turnip greens, save them and put them in like a stock pot with with other vegetables, and you can make your own vegetable broth. So that's another great way to reuse those items. All right, I am going to add these. Actually, a little more than I thought. So what I want to have happen now is I want these, they're soft enough already, so they're cooked. I just want them to get a little bit brown and caramelized, because like I said, there's like the sweetness of the radishes and the turnips will come out that way. Okay. Look at how pretty that is. Between the green onions, the radishes, which are a little more pink now, the turnips, it's like a really colorful looking pretty dish. You can like almost see all the nutrients you're going to get to eat in there. And I'm going to season this with a little bit of salt, probably about a 1/4 teaspoon, and just a little bit of black pepper. So something that was really interesting, like I mentioned, I bought these radishes at a farm stand near my house, and I came home with them last night, and I wanted to wash them right when I got home because they were filthy. They were like caked in dirt, and I didn't even want to put them in my fridge that way because they were just so dirty, and I didn't have a plastic bag for them. And my kids were kind of surprised by this. They were like, "Wow, the vegetables are so dirty." And it was a good opportunity to remind them truly, and I'm not saying this to be funny, that vegetables come from dirt. That, we're so, I think, accustomed to seeing vegetables in the grocery store that have been cleaned to some degree with good reason. It gets rid of, potentially harmful, like it gets rid of bugs and maybe some bacteria. But I know these were probably picked pretty recently, so they were okay. But it was just interesting that I think we sometimes forget where our food comes from, and it was a good lesson for them to be reminded, like, oh yeah, you pull vegetables out of dirt. They grow in the earth, and they don't just kind of magically appear on grocery store shelves. They come from somewhere. So just a nice little reminder about that. All right, these are getting nice and browned. We're going to let those just cook for another minute, and then what we're going to do is make a well in the center and crack some eggs in it and cook them, and there's your meal. It's going to be super simple. What I am going to use to add a little extra grease to the pan so the eggs don't stick, if you're using a super good nonstick skillet, that you may not need to do this, but I'm not sure how great the skillet that I'm using is, so I want to be sure. I'm going to actually add about a tablespoon of butter, and I am a believer that butter makes a lot of things taste really good, but you use it in moderation. So adding a tiny bit of butter to this dish is going to give it so much flavor without adding a ton of fat or saturated fat. So I'm truly going to use about a tablespoon, and remember, this is meant to feed several people, so that's going to go a long way. So when, it's things like butter and cream and cheeses are not off limits and should never be, but remember that a little bit can go a long way and really make food taste delicious. All right. I think we're good to go here. So what I am going to do is push this all to the side, and I'm going to add my butter. And then I am going to do, once that's melted, I'm going to do 4 eggs in here. These eggs are from a farm stand too, and there's like chicken feathers on them. Another reminder that eggs come from chickens. They don't just come from a carton. So that's it. We're gonna let those cook to like however you want, like you just cook the eggs however you like to cook them. I certainly, like they're certainly not edible right now. But while those cook, I'm actually going to get fancy and cut up a little parsley to put on top, just to make it look a little extra colorful. The parsley adds a nice flavor. Again, this is kind of like a little bit of a bonus to this dish. You know, I don't often make my dishes this fancy at home, but sometimes it feels nice to. If you like cilantro, this would be a nice place for it too. I happen to be one of those people who does not care for it, so I am not going to do that to this. All right, those are cooking away. We're going to give that another minute. So as I said, in the comments section, after we're done today, you will find today's recipe, a little fact sheet on radishes if you're interested in some more information about their nutrition, and the links to the surveys that we ask. If you haven't taken them, we would really appreciate it. So let this spread out a little and cook. This would also be a really great thing if you wanted to finish something like this off in the oven. You could absolutely do that. I wouldn't, if you wanted to cook it almost more like a shakshuka type dish, where it's like a dish that you put eggs, like make wells, put eggs on top and then bake it in the oven for a few minutes. I wouldn't use a nonstick pan. I would probably use a cast iron skillet if you were going to do that, but it would certainly help the caramelization of the vegetables and the eggs. And I don't have a lid here to make this go any faster, but they will cook in a few minutes. But this is such a great way to kind of think outside of the box in terms of feeding a lot of people a meal for dinner. You know, this is, like I said, about $8 worth of ingredients, and this will feed probably, depending again on how hungry you are, probably about 2 or 3 people. The recipe is for 2, assuming each person has 2 eggs, but you could certainly make more and crack more eggs into this. And it's a great way to think about just making affordable meals that are not necessarily based with, you know, that aren't meat based. Yeah, it's just a really yummy dinner. I could eat eggs any time of day, I think. This would also make a lovely like brunch on a weekend. You can impress all your friends that didn't know you could make turnips and radishes taste so good.
We have a question about the eggs, Val.
Yes.
So do you, and I guess we'll find this out, but do you leave them whole, or could you like mix them up into it?
You could leave them whole. You could mix them up. You could scramble them. So another way to do this would be to like scramble them beforehand, or beat them beforehand and put them in and just stir them around and cook them. It would probably be a little faster, to be honest, but these are almost done actually. I'm not going to flip them because I fear that I'm going to make a giant mess, but certainly if you like them sunny side down, you could do that. And you could serve this without the eggs too. One thing I contemplated doing, and then I didn't have a chance to get any at the store, was adding some vegetarian breakfast sausage to this. Like I think like either cutting it up and mixing it in with the hash would be really delicious. If you like it, you could use regular sausage too. Chorizo would probably be really delicious in this. But I eat a lot of the vegetarian sausage. I think it's like one of the better meat alternatives out there that's been around for a while. And they're pretty affordable. Trader Joe's and Morningstar Farms are the brands that I personally like best, and I think that would make this like a really super hearty meal. All right, well, I am gonna go back on my word, and I am gonna flip these over because I do want them to cook. Oh, I did a pretty good job. So I'm flipping those over because I do want them to cook so I can plate this up and show everybody the final dish. So hopefully my colleagues who will taste this afterwards like their eggs this way. This would be great with toast too, by the way. I'm just saying, like a good piece of sourdough toast would be really wonderful with this. All right, I'm gonna turn the heat off. Parsley on that. And there you go. This is like the prettiest, most colorful hash that I think you could make. And it's super healthy, using mostly seasonal ingredients. And I hope you all give this a try. And please, if you do, if you cook this or any of the recipes that we show you, please comment in the comments section, because we love hearing from you and love hearing what you all are doing out there. So with that, thank you for joining us for Learning Kitchen Live. Thank you again to our friends at Boston Scientific for sponsoring this, and we'll see you back here next week.